So I want to walk you through a behavior-driven development exercise. It's for this web app. It's a Rails-based web app for firefighters. And it centers around being able to collect information about structures and buildings and things like that. So this just is a made-up test structure here. And you can see you can have Google Maps show different, whether it's road map or hybrid or things like that. So, however, earlier this year, got a couple of requests that when they were printing out the PDF, because most people don't use the PDFs too much, so I never really focused on them, because we would rather you have the latest and greatest information in the web app versus some document. Anyway, they pointed out, lo and behold, the map doesn't adhere to the settings for the map in the web app. So this was about adding a new feature, or you might call it an enhancement. And as I said, I'd gotten the first request back in January. Didn't really do anything other than log it in. Say, okay, that's a logical request. And then I got another ping from a different user a few months later. So I might have even gotten a third that triggered this. So I did some research and I kind of put this on the shelf and said, yeah, I can see where I'm hard coding it, sure enough, in the way the PDF is, I should say in the way that the Google Map is generated, that it's hard coded. So, all right, that's enough for me to decide to do this work. So the way that I like to start in behavior-driven development is with the feature. So it's an acceptance test type feature. We want to be able to indicate what sort of behavior we want the user to experience. So in this case, I'm using cucumber. It's a very classic BDD. I love it. It's the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion. So I know that there were some other map features, and lo and behold, I just need to extend this existing test, right? So org admins can control default map look and feel. So it lets people basically do things that suits their preferences. So I'm going to just notice that this looks an awful lot like the kind of test I want, basically to be able to configure the PDF map type instead of the default map type. So I'm going to quite simply duplicate it and edit to taste. Going to configure the PDF map type. Going to just change this to say the field on the form. We'll have the label PDF map type, and the field on the page when you're viewing the organization settings will also have that. So if I go ahead and run this test, all right, so this is red-green refactor, so to speak. So it's about writing a test, a failing test, that will help guide our development so we don't go too crazy and don't know what the meaning of done is for this particular feature. So that's going to run, and it's going to try to basically, I'll show you what it's trying to do. It was opening up the manage organization. So under the admin, manage organization, and you'll see it was update, so that means like edit. So if I go into edit, it's looking for a field, and you can see down here where we could probably put it right in between these two. So it's looking for a field, and of course the test fails immediately because there is no field. So back up to the application code, look at the views, go find where we have organization form, and sure enough, we've got something right here. that has the pre-plan settings for the maps, right? This is the Google Maps, right? This is the area of the code for Google Map type and labels, stuff like that. So what we can do is, you see I have an empty column, and I'm just gonna move it up. And we will call it PDF map type. Same thing down here. It's an empty column. Basically all the same choices, so we just need to distinguish it. So it's the PDF map type. All right, so because it could not find the PDF map type, so let's see if it finds it this time. So you see all those green check marks down here about elements in the test that I didn't have to write. So in the beginning, you would have had to have written all of this. If this was the first test I created, I would have to have written all of the elements behind these steps. They're called steps. And the cool thing is it's code. This is a closed loop testing mechanism. So we are actually driving kind of like a headless browser, so to speak. So there we are. We now are getting a complaint that the field was there. We shoved some text into the field, the form submitted, and of course it goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what this field is. So that drives us down to write a unit test. So we're going to go from the acceptance test, the outer level, so to speak, the UI, and we're going to go to the organization itself. And we'll go find where I probably have map. Yeah, it's just started to search for map. So we'll, once again, there's map type pre-plan, those three fields that are in the class. So I'm going to cheat by not typing everything and do a little cut and paste. Default PDF map type. PDF map type. It can be hybrid. Validates PDF map type. Yeah, so that's just a little overkill, because you would think the select list isn't going to let something goofy in there, but anyway, I'm just going to keep this consistent and not question my former self. So there we go. Let's run this test. You would expect it to fail. And that's because the organization, right, we're getting the same error basically. It's still complaining that the organization does not have this field. So let's open up that class. Once again, let's look for map type. There it is. Let's just bang in map type, run the test again. Oh, there's a little error here. See, it's a false positive. And we can demonstrate now that, see, that's the danger of cut and paste. Now let me go down and find, here we go, where the validation is. So let's just duplicate this validation, PDF map type. And let's see if we can get out of the unit test. So we're just trying to specify this field is new in organization, and then we can come back to this failing test where it was not accepting the field value because it didn't know what to do with it. And for those of you who know model view controller, we're still going to have a difficulty here because there's a bit of chunk in the controller that we have to deal with to let it know about this new field. So once again, we search for the map type, we'll see it here. And I'll just add that. Oops. Add that to the acceptable, basically the fields that are allowed in. So it was rejecting the field PDF map type. So let's run that test again. See if it goes all the way through. So it's still not finding it. Oh, that's right, because it's not finding it on the page. Because we didn't add it to the view page. So let's go back to our organization and let's look at the show page. And we can mimic the map type here. PDF map type. So now the show page, it's basically, this is the edit page. Matter of fact, I could probably refresh this and we'll see the new field come in. So if I turn this into something like terrain and submit it, this is what I just added to the show page. So that's the show page right here. So we're able to edit it, we're able to see it on the show page. That's the simplisticness of this test. And there's an art to making tests simpler, or you don't want them to be too complicated that they break for no apparent reason. And if we do something in this part of the code to try to validate the test. For example, if we didn't put anything there, so it's blank. So sometimes I do this just to, when the tests are a little bit gnarly, though they shouldn't be, prove that your test works. So this test should fail because of course there's no data showing up. So we undo that, get the test back in shape. So if we go back to the pre-plan, notice we didn't really do anything yet with PDF. We just built a configurable field that the org admin can alter, but we didn't actually use it. So there is no change yet to the PDF. Now I will admit that I do not have it tested where the PDFs are actually, proving that the static map is indeed changed. So that particular attribute is handled. So if we go to the, like what we're looking at is a structure. Oh, let me go to the controller. So in this section where we're talking about the PDF, we've got the static map generator. And we'd like to pass into here the fact that we have a new map type. So if I create the map type here to pass in, this is just some gizmo inside this controller here, so just bear with me. But I'm basically pulling out the current org, what its PDF map type is. Okay, so I want to force this to accept the map type. Of course, now it's complaining that the initializer is busted. Thank you to my compatriots that I used to work with at TogetherSoft that formed JetBrains. But now let me go to this class, and we'll go to the initializer, and we'll add map type equals, and it used to be roadmap was the default. But we'll see, we can change this a little bit later. Map type equals map type. And where is roadmap? Oh, here it is. So we have discovered our hard-coded world that we're going to turn into a dynamic value that the org admin can control. This is a SaaS app, so we have multiple organizations using the same app. So that's why I call them an org. You know, we sell to fire departments and pharmaceutical companies, things like that. So they now can control sending what kind of map type to the PDF and the static map generator that gets shoved inside the PDF. So let's try this again. And we'll see. Oh, oh, nice. Looks like I made a typo somewhere. Cool. In a really easy place. Oh, we are in structures controller, sorry. Well, that's a little bizarre. So let me just go back to did I do something wrong? The initializer. Oh, sure did. Boink. Do. So, yeah, you know, this should have tests around it, I admit. But there you go. Can't always be perfect. So let's see if we get control over the PDF. Now, I think I changed it to terrain, which is really subtle. How about I change it to something a little more obvious? Like maybe hybrid. And we'll go back to our pretend vet office and try the PDF again. So there we go. Now we have full control over not only the web view of the map and the map types, but the PDF. So what did we do? Just to recap, we had an issue that described a very simple feature. And if I do my normal, just walk through the commit, for example, if this was a pull request, this is what I'd do. And the first thing I would look to, of course, is I would make sure that the issue number is in the commit. But I would look at the behavior that's expected. So in this case, we see that there's some new ability to update the PDF map type and to be able to see it. Okay, that's cool. And then I would look at the unit tests and see similar. We now accept this property and it's got some questionable validation. Could probably drop that and not lose too much sleep. And then I would see, the typical things that you might expect in the forms, the edit form, the show page, right? Simple, added the label and the field. Show page, same thing, label the field. Looks like PDF map type is going through there. The organization, you can see that we added the field property and some validation. And the org controller, we allow this field in the form. And then the structures controller, we yank the map type out of the current org and pass it on to basically the image generator for the static map. And yeah, that's really it. So that's what it looks like. In probably about 20 minutes, you can see how the behavior-driven development, writing a failing test at the outer loop acceptance test level, then dropping down into an inner loop at the model level with a failing unit test, and then working your way back up to the top until everything passes, and then doing a little manual testing for things that might not be worth trying to automate the tests. Anyway, hope this helps explain a little bit around behavior-driven development. Thank you.